Packers are the number 2 seed as we speak to you, entering a big game against the Chicago Bears, 7-6. They've won 4 and 5 after dismantling Dallas. The Pipines podcast features Gary Ellerson, the former Badger and Packer, 105.7 FM The Fan. He is the catalyst on that show, 2 to 6, and on Spectrum News 1, the football show with Gary Ellerson. Forgive me, Gary Ellerson, I love him so much, I'll say it twice, with Leroy Butler. No offense to Leroy.
No.
And Dennis Krause and John Dodds, our Packers historian, an MVP. So here come the Bears. And, what about this team? They have a life now. They have a pulse. Against Dallas, Mitch Trubisky was doing it with his feet. So is that a factor the Packers are going to have to watch for on Sunday at Lambeau Field?
Well, listen, they've won 3 games in a row, right? And I think most people thought they were just going to go away and hide, and they go and they beat Dallas in a big game, and I thought that was good for them. You look at Mitch Trubisky, I think that's been a big turnaround for them. I think their head coach Matt Nagy. Sometimes guys try to be the smartest guy in the room, and I thought their head coach Nagy was doing it. I think you've got a quarterback that is like Lamar Jackson, that is like Deshaun Watson. I'm not saying he's those guys, but that's the kind of game that he has. You look at Nagy came from that passing offense in Kansas City with Patrick Mahomes, and Mahomes, they want to throw it around, spread you out, and do all those sorts of things. I think Mitch is a guy that is a ride and decide guy. He's very athletic. He can run the football. And I think finally they realize that, and they're letting him do some of those things. And I think that's been a resurgence to their offense.
John, the defense obviously is a vaunted one, not playing as well this year as last year in their 12-4 season. Roquan Smith is out. Danny Trevathan probably game time decision, at least at this stage, and they might be getting Hakeem Hicks back. This is a defense that will test the Packers. Unlike the last 2, and that offense was moribund, as we know, Giants and Washington.
Yeah, Hakeem Hicks, that's a big addition. He was the one that probably gave the Packers the most trouble because they have to double team him. And that when they do that, that means they have fewer people to slide outside for their to Khalil Mack. Although Khalil Mack and Bulaga, that's a good matchup for Green Bay if Bulaga is healthy, because Bulaga does a good job against him when he's healthy. And that's a big plus. You look at the Bears, they're hot. And this will be, you could argue this is the toughest game the Packers are going to have the rest of the year, even more than Minnesota, because the Bears are fighting for their lives. But on one hand, the negative thing about the Bears is they've beaten Detroit twice, the Giants, and Dallas. None of those teams they've won 4 out of their last 5. But I think back to week 1, which does seem like 3 months ago, where Tramon Williams said, we have to let Trubisky be Trubisky. And he wasn't trying to insult him. All they were saying was keep the pocket, keep him from leaving the pocket, contain him. Trubisky is on the move. He does his best. Kind of like, he was very much like Tony Romo, kind of in his prime, where Tony Romo, if he could get out of the pocket, he could make things happen with the run or with the pass. So if they can keep him in the pocket and contained and let the Smith brothers do their magic, and I think that's what the Packers will try to do.
Aaron Jones, 192 total yards against Washington, 134 the rush, 8.4 average, his 15th touchdown, 7 catches, 58 yards. Man, you'd love to see this against a solid defense such as Chicago's. How can they get him involved to have a repeat performance? The one thing I did read was when he had his slump, he gave credit to Ben Simmons, the running backs coach, to say, look, I think you're a little fast. Slow the game down a little bit, and he was finding his holes. But what can they do to make him a major factor against the better teams?
Well, I think, initially what they did this past weekend, I just think they got to get him isolated, and they were able to do that in the passing game, right? Get him isolated, get him outside. He's a guy that you don't want to pound inside very much. So in some ways, he's one-dimensional because he's a slight of build, so you want to get him on the outside. You want to get him in the passing games. You can do those sorts of things. I think a combination, though, of Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams makes both of those guys better running backs than what they are, because you just don't know what you're going to get out of them.
Glad you mentioned, especially guys this time of year on that slick Lambeau Field surface, John.
That's right. If you had to look at one thing, I'd say stuff the run. If the Packers stuff the run, let Trubisky beat you from in the pocket. And the Packers did a great job. Their best defensive performance of the year was in Week 1. Mm-hmm. They won 10-3 and really knocked the Chicago Bears off the rails.
They did.
And it just kind of shook them to the core, even the fans. Mm-hmm. The fans, everybody in the broadcasting, you could just tell that the sports talk shows, oh my goodness, Mitch Trubisky. Hub Arkush was saying, I always listen to Hub in the radio down in Chicago. He was saying that Trubisky was really wild, inaccurate in training camp. But he said he hoped that he attributed that to the great Bear defense, that it was tough for him in practice. Mm-hmm. And that Bear defense is great. They will be missing Roquan Smith. He's out for the year. And they don't know if Trevathan, their middle linebacker, Danny Trevathan, is going to be playing. But getting Hicks back is huge.
What can the Packers do offensively, Gary? And we were talking about this, recapping the Washington game and the Giants game over the last few games, to put a little punch in the offense once more, as we were saying, after those scripted plays, which worked beautifully. Boy, the offense just it's nothing.
Well, I think what has to happen in this game against the Bears, Aaron Rodgers has a propensity of holding on to the football. Mm-hmm. If you do it against this group, he's going to get beat up. So I think what they have to do is try to come out with a quick passing game. I mean, everything has got to be about time. It's got to be on. Now, Aaron Rodgers is going to be Aaron Rodgers. I mean, I think that's what makes him great, and that's what has made him great over a number of years. And so he's able to ad-lib and do some things. But I think for the most part, he just can't put his offensive linemen in tough situations to try to hold those blocks. That's a good defensive front that they're going against, probably one of the better ones that we've seen since they played against the 49ers. I think it's imperative that he at least try to get the ball out on time, or if he got to throw it away, just try to throw it away and try to live to fight another day. Yeah, 10-3 was the last time that we saw this team, and that's what the score was. I happen to think the score is going to be a little bit higher this time. I think the Packers can go and at least get up 27 points on these teams.
And again, I think Gary's right on. It resonates with me. Why aren't they faster? Why aren't they? I mean, going back to the Bears game when Rodgers got hurt last year, came on with that knee, and why isn't there more of that? I understand that Aaron is going to be Aaron, and Matt is trying to allow him to do that, but it's frustrating.
Yeah, it's
get rid of it. Darn it.
You got to give LaFleur a lot of credit, though, because he totally changed up the team or the offense that he ran against the Bears. It was an outside zone running team in a game, and they just didn't have that against the Bears. The Bears' outside linebackers pretty much stuffed that run. Then they switched to the inside zone rushing, and that's when they really started coming to the fore, especially with Aaron Jones. Jamal Williams is someone to watch this time. A power running back against the Bears. That's going to be interesting to watch.
And always going forward, right? Gary, you've talked about him before. I mean, he's a great complement to Jones.
Right, great. He has great body lean. I mean, he's a guy, obviously, I believe he leads the Green Bay Packers in receiving touchdowns. I mean, who would ever thought that with a Devontae Adams? But so he brings a lot to the table. And once again, when it gets in, this month in December, it gets cold, the field gets a little slick. I think he's a maybe better suit them. But listen, I think when you look at the team as a whole offensively, they're limited in weapons that they have, and they have to depend on Aaron Rodgers. They're going to have to find other ways to win games. Well, they've got 10 wins, and I think they've been able to do that. I think what we're trying to look for is some consistency in this offense, and I'm sure that's what they're looking for too. I think one thing about this offense that I think maybe puzzles other teams that come in here, they don't know what they're going to get. They don't know if it's going to be Jimmy Graham. They don't know if it's going to be Aaron Jones. They don't know if it's going to be MVS. I mean, they have no idea who's going to show up. So in that regard, you can't just hone in on one player. I think it just kind of it morphs into something while they're playing. And I think that's the advantage of the Green Bay Packers.
John, have you ever seen a team like the Packers? As Gary was saying, you can't really figure them out. And yet they have the 10 wins, and LaFleur, as we've been saying, more wins than any Packers rookie coach, and that includes Vince Lombardi, right, and Mike Sherman, and Curly Lambeau, you name it, Mike Holmgren, Mike McCarthy. But yet we sit here and I feel like, hey, they're 10-3. Why are you so negative?
Because they don't have an identity. They don't have an identity offensively, for sure.
I think so.
I mean, it's Aaron Rodgers, but I mean, the concept of what they want to do there is not really.
Is it identity or is it a lack of tools or both? Because as you say, when you look at the real contenders, and I'm going to say at this point, they are the real contenders, the San Franciscos, the Seattle, and even though the Packers are the 2 seed, the New Orleans, they've all got really good receivers and tight ends, more weapons than the Packers do.
They do, but it all comes down to the difference between 6-10 and 10-6 is virtually nothing in the NFL. A year ago, the Packers were in big trouble playing the Bears, and I remember there were 3 people on the Bear injury list going down to Chicago, 3 players, and there was 20 listed for the Packers. Their whole defensive line, their secondary, everybody was banged up. So being healthy, I think being healthy has been the key, but the 96 Packers would be undefeated in the NFL and score 50 points a game. The NFL just isn't as good as it used to be. And so I think we might be expecting too much from the Packers, but as long as you have Rodgers, and one of the things why, as you said, they're inconsistent, you can't really get a handle on it, is Rodgers is a veteran enough to know I will take what they give me. And when Kansas City has bad linebackers covering Aaron Jones on the outside, he exploited that. Other teams will put a really good defensive back on Aaron Jones, so Rodgers won't go there. Rodgers was going to pass early in the game when everybody came up in the box against Washington, but when they had the injuries to the cornerbacks and they dropped back to help the rookie cornerbacks, then they ran more. So I think Rodgers does more based on what's kind of the path of least resistance. What are they giving me? And he'll go to it. So in the first game against the Bears, remember the 2 big plays, he threw the bomb over the middle of the MVS for about 45 yards down the middle of the field.
That's what got him going.
And then he threw the touch pass to Graham for the touchdown, and that was it. There was nothing else in that game. I think it'll be better. It'll be I agree with Gary, it'll be a higher scoring game this time because I don't think the Bears' defense probably is as good.
They're healthy and they're MVPs. PCI Construction, Mike and Michelle Grau do a fabulous job, and they are so very big in our community. We've been saying that a whole bunch. We're going to show you some of the things they do in upcoming podcasts. Gary, you want to make a prediction on
Sure,
this
why
one?
not?
Yeah. I mean, how are you feeling about 11-3, the possibilities?
Well,
does this game scare you?
Yeah, it does. It concerns me a lot. It's just that I think their offense, the Bears' offense, feels like they're in a rhythm. They're trying to find it. I think Blake Martinez is going to have a big game for him. I think if Mitch Trubisky wants to run the football and he likes to kind of run off tackle, you got to have Blake at the top of his game. They'll try to exploit him a little bit. But I think, with that being said, I think the Packers win that game at home. And then they play well at Lambeau Field, 27-24.
27-24. Wow. Okay, John?
Well, Allen Robinson is the wide receiver. They can complete a ball to him, it seems like, at any time. So that concerns me. How
about David Montgomery? Forgive me, but that running back who's been so very good from Iowa State.
That's the key. Can the Packer defensive line stuff the offensive line of the Bears? I don't know how good the Bears' running game is, but if they can do that, let Trubisky beat you from in the pocket. That's the key to it. It's interesting. My prediction was Green Bay 27, Chicago 23. So I have a mixed extra point. Otherwise, I'm the same as Gary. That's kind of how I see it. But it's turnovers. This is turnovers up in. It's going to be 29 degrees and sunny. So it's going to be actually nice on Sunday.
All right, how about Packers? I like to listen to you guys, and I try to get right in there somewhere. I'll say 24-20 in favor of Matt LaFleur and company. At this time of year, it's a great gift. Of course, we're headed toward at Christmas, and it's just a real blessing to have Gary Ellerson with us. He's one of the finest people I know, and he's the former Badger and Packer, 105.7 FM, The Fan, The Big Show, and with Leroy Butler and Dennis Krause, Spectrum News 1, The Football Show, and John Dodds. He gives you the historical aspect that none can give you on a podcast, and me, I'm just grateful to be with him. The Pip and Dodds podcast featuring Gary Ellerson, brought to you by Professional Construction, Inc., and our good friends here at WisconsinSportsStream.com. WSS Sports. We're grateful for you, everybody.